Okay, so we're live.
Terrific.
So let me look at the YouTube channel. So there's 3 people watching at the moment. So
Hi, everybody.
Let's just give it a few minutes.
Sure.
Ed, you can hear me, can you?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
See your PowerPoint deck. Okay, I will go on mute in a minute. So there's a chat window in the YouTube channel. So if you want to just say hello, and if you have any questions, I will be moderating this meetup.
Your sound's cutting in and out a little bit, Peter.
Is it?
Now I think you're better.
Okay, we'll start in 1 minute. So, Ed, you're down in Pennsylvania, correct?
New York City.
Oh, you're in New York City?
Yeah.
Where in New York City?
In Midtown. I'm actually using a client's conference room.
Oh, okay. No problem.
So right by Times Square. Live from Times Square, New York City.
Wow, exciting stuff here. You know, it sounds like the New York Eve, you know, watching the ball drop and everything.
I'm sure, from the comfort and warmth of my own home.
Okay.
It was something like 25 degrees during the actual ball dropping. So my hat off to everybody who braved that, because what they don't tell you on the shows is that in order for those people to be where they are in front of the camera, anywhere near the camera or the ball, they have to be there for 6 to 12 hours trying to find some way of keeping warm.
I've heard this where people.
It's an effort.
Yeah, where people.
You don't just show up at 11:30 and pick a spot amongst the millions.
Right.
But Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Okay, then, Ed, my name's Peter Ward. Okay, thank you for joining the meetup, the New York Enterprise Collaboration Meetup. We've been doing this remote for the last 2 or 3 months, and we've been using GoToMeeting, but we thought we're going to have a bit more of a broadcast experience by doing it through the YouTube broadcasting, should we say, media and channels. So this is the first time we've been doing the YouTube. So if there's any technical issues, I will actually take responsibility of that. So thank you, Steve. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year, Jack, as well. Okay, so we've got we've got a tight schedule, so we're going to try and wrap up at 1 o'clock. So we've got a rather cool subject and a rather cooler speaker. Okay, so with that note, I'm going to hand that over to you, Ed.
Okay, wait, there is one more slide here I wanted everybody to see. That's just the schedule. So we're going to finish up by 1. I'm going to hope to stop the presentation and demo by about 10 to 1 so that we can take some Q&A. As Peter mentioned, there's a chat, so please feel free to drop questions in there at any time, and we'll go over them at the end, or we might sprinkle some of them into the conversation if they're relevant to what we're doing. So Let me, wait a minute. I'm going to switch to another show. There we go. So welcome to Demystifying Microsoft Teams, an epic collaboration tool that I'm a huge fan of. I want to thank Peter and SoHo Dragon and Ricky, who's helping us out too, for getting the broadcast together and promoting this on Meetup as well. My name is Ed Harrow. I'm joining you from, as we said before, from near Times Square in New York City. I run a company called Lytic Group, and we are a consulting group focusing on Microsoft, the whole Microsoft business intelligence stack, and surfacing it mostly through SharePoint, Power BI, reporting services, and the whole BI stack and everything. I am an MCSE, again, focusing mostly on my work on BI and SharePoint. And I've been using Teams for over the past year, mostly to manage remote teams, and it works fantastically. It's essential. It's an essential part of my toolkit for project management, and hopefully you'll see that as well as we go along. My email address is at the bottom. Feel free to get in touch, either to chat about Teams or anything else that you've got going on in the SharePoint Office 365 world. I'll share that with you again at the end. What we're going to go over in this presentation is, again, as the title suggests, trying to demystify Teams, because Microsoft Teams is similar to other things that you already know about if you're working with Office 365 and SharePoint. So it's really important to try to figure out exactly where that fits into that whole scheme. So I'm going to try to give you some context throughout this presentation so that you know what it's similar to, but what it isn't, and also where it is. And sort of try to differentiate it from the other things that it's similar to. We'll go over some features. I'll tell you about some of the things that we can add to it, and some of the flexibility and some of the spontaneity that gets added into your communication and collaboration as you're working with Teams. We'll do a little bit of a comparison, again, trying to figure out what Teams is and isn't, comparing it to groups and various types of groups you might be familiar with. Comparing it to Skype for Business. I'm going to demonstrate as much as I can. I've promised Peter that I wouldn't just go through slides for more than 20 minutes before flipping over into demonstrations. Now the demonstration is what sells this, and everything is quick and it's easy to use, and it's very inviting and welcoming, I find, because you can do anything with it as far as collaboration and communication. So this talk is oriented as an overview, as I said, for those who have heard of Teams. Maybe you're trying to be a little more sold on it. So I'll go into a little bit of depth. If you're an administrator, again, this is really more of a curiosity satisfying overview. We'll talk a little bit about the administration and, again, what Teams relates to as far as the other backend components that feed it and that interact with it and that are somewhat integrated with it. Things like Exchange and Outlook and SharePoint. And again, I'll try to demonstrate as much as I can and show you sort of where and how you can enrich your Teams experience using things like additional power apps, what are called connectors, and things that you can add to your chat and your video conferences. So what is Microsoft Teams? This is Microsoft's big communication platform. This is the evolution and next step following Skype for Business. Microsoft wants to get everybody off of Skype for Business and over to Microsoft Teams, because that's where the investment of development and effort and increasing its robustness and its competitiveness, that's where they've invested all their efforts. So this is the core communication platform. If you're using Skype for Business, start looking at getting rid of it. Teams is what's next. Teams has everything that Skype for Business had, but again, Microsoft is investing more in upgrading it and making it even more competitive and even more useful. So compliance, if you are looking at this from an implementation and administration and a standpoint of whether our organization could benefit from this, and also whether it meets any of the compliance standards that you are beholden to. Microsoft made an effort to make this a no-brainer as far as compliance is concerned. Yes, you're communicating a lot. Yes, you're sharing a lot of information and a lot of files and data, as I'll demonstrate later on, but it's protected. Okay, so Microsoft Teams is compliant. It's Tier C compliant, which includes a number of different compliance standards, including HIPAA, others both within the United States and around the world. And this is documented on Microsoft's site as well. Where is Teams exactly? So this is a Power App. If you've been using Office 365 or SharePoint Online, or actually just SharePoint, even on-prem, you have access to a number of additional apps that are the next generation of how Microsoft wants you to interact with your colleagues and collaborate. Okay, so other Power Apps include Forms, Flow, Yammer, Delve, Planner. Okay, this is one of those. You can even download this for a quick sec. If we are, okay, so now I'm in Teams, and you've got your apps waffle over here. This is where you're going to find Teams. It's one of many apps that you have at your disposal. It is not SharePoint. It's not part of SharePoint. It interacts with SharePoint as one of many available Office 365 apps. So I hope that actually clarifies something. As I get further into the demonstrations, you'll see how Teams interacts with SharePoint. Each team actually has a URL. So you could even share a URL with somebody via email. Each connector within Teams has its own URL. So for example, a chat by itself has a URL to it. In fact, I can switch out. I hope I don't get too excited with demos before it's time for demos, but I'm looking at one of the chats that I have in Teams, and I'm doing it through a browser, and that's the easiest place to actually see that I have a URL for this specific chat. If I move out of here, oh wait, I don't have another channel. Not yet anyway, but if I were to go to another channel, the URL would change. If I switch over to these files, the URL up there changes. So you do have a route to everything that you see and use in Teams, a direct route, I should say. You just saw me looking at it quickly through a browser. There's a desktop version, and I'd suggest that you get it and use it if you're planning on using Teams, because it's actually more robust than the browser version. In fact, if I switch back out, if you're using it through your browser, there's a Get App icon right there on the lower left of Teams. If you go to your apps waffle and explore your apps there, you've got the ability to download it there. And of course, you can download it from the Microsoft store. Now, the great thing is the mobile experience is really rich, and Microsoft has really gotten this right. It might have taken a little while, but they really did. As recently as the middle of this year, I was bummed that my mobile app couldn't create a brand new meeting and schedule one, and now it can. So it's pretty thorough. So that's available through your favorite mobile app store, the Apple Store, Google Play, etc. Now, some of you are familiar, of course, with groups already. You've got Outlook groups, and if you're an administrator in Office 365, this sort of makes you stop and think anytime anybody says the word group, because you've got SharePoint groups, you've got security groups, you've got Outlook groups. Is this one of those groups? No, it's not. A team can include people from those groups, but it is not one of those groups. So it's not a SharePoint group. You don't get a team automatically when you create a SharePoint group. It's not an Active Directory group. Again, you don't get a team automatically with anything in AD or Azure AD. Same thing with the security group. There's a permission model, security model within a team, but it is not a permission by itself. And I'll address that a little bit further shortly. Exchange and Outlook, it's not one of those groups. However, when you do create a team, there is a group that automatically gets created in Outlook. So that sort of creation is in a single direction. Okay, the reverse is not true at all. Okay, so a team is an assembly of people within one of the Power Apps. Okay, again, you've got to think of this as just happening within one of the Power Apps. However, some of the things that you do within Teams end up someplace else. Some of it ends up in SharePoint. Some of it ends up in Outlook. I will address that. Who can use Teams? If you are on SharePoint, and that includes online and on-prem, you've got the ability to use Teams as long as an administrator turns it on. Okay, as far as your tenancy or your SharePoint implementation. Now, one of the ways I can answer this question, who can use Teams, is to mention who can be on a team, who can be pulled into and included in the team. And that's just about anybody in any of the groups that are already in your environment. So that includes users in Exchange and Outlook, groups in Exchange and Outlook, groups in Active Directory. They can all be pulled into a team as a group or as individual users. With every team. Go ahead, Peter.
So Ed, I'm assuming like it's the same security principle. Don't put distribution groups in team groups. Use AD groups or on this rather than distribution groups.
Correct. That's preferable. As far as best practice, administrators have to watch over that. And I'll address shortly one of the other security concerns administrators might have. But yeah, best practice, and this is true with SharePoint and Office 365 in general. You want to take advantage of your Azure AD users and groups. That's going to be best practice. So within a team, you've got a team owner and you've got team members. Team owners can do whatever they want, including adding members and adding other owners, and everybody else is a member. If you're a member, you are read and write. That's it. This is the only security distinction within a team once somebody is on a team. Okay, you can either do everything including security or everything else. I put a link up here for some of the requirements and specifications as far as who can use Teams, some prerequisites as far as where your users need to be before they can be seen by Teams. It's a really good reference page. Teams on mobile, like I said, it's a pretty rich experience. There have been a good number of times where I've been on a Teams conference call with somebody who's dialing in from their mobile and they've got their video on and the camera's looking up at their face and I can see the buildings around them and I'm trying in my head to identify what block they're on in Manhattan. And I can see them crystal clear while there are 6 other people, 10 other people on the conference. So I've been pretty satisfied as far as use for video conferencing on a team basis. My wife complains that once they've got 45 people on a Teams conference call that the bandwidth starts to suffer a little bit and the quality starts to suffer. Why that happens, that could be bandwidth, that could be user bandwidth, it could be a number of factors. But generally speaking, if you're using Teams for video conferencing, for status meeting, executive presentation, and obviously, this is just my experience, so I don't have the numbers available here as to what the maximum is. I think it's something like 250 people on a conference call. So the experience varies, but in terms of using it collaboratively, I've been rather happy. Even with the mobile experience, I can create new meetings, start them spontaneously. We can now screen share our mobile device. So that's a relatively recent, new great step up by Microsoft, and they only keep improving the application that much more. So if you are collaborating with anyone, now again, this is good for presentations too, but some of the features that are specifically useful for collaboration, threaded chat. So and you know, if and some of you are used to these concepts already. So we have channels that we create. So each channel is just a chat with a title on it, and it just stays there. So if you have a project, you can have one for design discussion, another for maybe the debrief and the postmortem at the very end. Maybe sub teams within it will have I shouldn't have used that word. Maybe smaller groups within your team want to get together about certain topics, and they can have their own channel. Within a chat, we can add emojis, stickers. I'll try to add some of those in a moment. I'm going to get the demo started soon. Video conferencing, we mentioned, it's a pretty robust video conferencing tool. Screen sharing's in there, of course. Meeting recording, that was added late this year. And that can be done via both the browser and desktop versions. We can post and store files. So during a discussion, in the middle of a discussion, somebody can freely add a file to the chat. And now that's what's the word I'm looking for? Starts with not an archive. A leave behind. Can't think of the word right now. A leave behind from the chat that's now permanently part of the channel and can be referred back to later. The integration of other apps is key to enriching the collaboration made possible by teams. So we can rope in. I'll probably demonstrate roping in PowerPoint. We can add Planner. We can add OneNote. All while you're in the middle of a discussion. All shareable to everybody who is on a particular conference or who is a member of the team. We can open and edit Office documents in place, change them during the discussion. It gets pretty lively and it gets pretty involved, and it's really just like being in a conference room with your colleagues, being in a war room together, and making some changes on the spot as the discussion progresses. I already mentioned, really like the video conferencing experience. We can add people as we go. In fact, we can add people to a video conference who aren't even part of the team. Rather spontaneously, we can add additional AD users. We can add groups who can invite them to a video conference. We can even add external users. I think Microsoft had been hounded and hassled enough about this that they've made the process of adding external users from outside of your organization a lot easier than it used to be. Even as spontaneously as thinking of someone right off the top of your head during a conference, during a video conference, and inviting them right into the video conference as long as they have the Teams app through any device. So it's a pretty rich experience. So what happened to Skype for Business? Companies, organizations were all about Skype for Business. We're using it pretty heavily. This slide, a lot of this slide is maybe out of date already. In mid-November, Microsoft decided, okay, we're just upgrading absolutely everybody who's on Skype for Business up to Teams. So we're all leaving Skype for Business behind, is the bottom line. Teams is where it's at. Teams is what Microsoft is supporting. Teams where Microsoft wants you. Teams can do everything Skype for Business could do, and then some. And that is where the focus of improvement and grading is going to be from Microsoft's standpoint.
Is there a sunset for Skype for Business? When's that going to be not supported?
That's what I'm not clear on. I was looking through Microsoft's Admin Center. Let's see. So if you go into, this is something everybody should be aware of. If you go into your Admin Center through Office 365, there is, from your home page, so this is where you normally start in the Admin Center. Towards the bottom, you've got the Message Center, which is the single point where, oops, which is the, let me try that again. Message Center, here we go, which is Microsoft's main channel for expressing news. I got to try it again. For expressing news about Office 365. Why is it not taking me there?
Waiting for admin.
All right.
While you're waiting for this, quick question.
No, it's not letting me go there.
It's quick question.
So that's where Microsoft expresses all the news about 365. Go ahead.
Okay, quick question here from a few people. External users, you just answered that question. Okay, does Teams use Graph API to interact with all the other Office 365 apps?
I don't know a lot about Graph API. I've read something recently. Is the other method. I'm not experienced enough in Graph API to.
So it says, are files
on that
stored in SharePoint or OneDrive? Let me just
SharePoint.
Okay, yeah.
Answer to that. I'll go over that a little bit momentarily. I'm going to start a demo.
You can connect your OneDrive into it.
Yes.
On that, and that's so when people. So if people ever ask you, oh, can you do anonymous access with team files? What you could do is connect the file from what in Teams into OneDrive and then share that OneDrive connection externally as an anonymous access. Okay, next question.
Sure. I don't think that's what your administrator wants you to do, though.
No, he probably doesn't. Absolutely not.
Your administrator doesn't want you to find a way of providing anonymous access to corporate files to the outside world. So shame on you.
On that. Okay. Next question is,
talk to your administrator about that.
Okay.
I don't want to start getting into how to get around security.
Right. Okay. So can we?
Do you want me to get started on demos?
Sorry.
We've got 20 minutes.
Okay.
We've got 20 minutes left in the
go to the demo. And
do the demos
afterwards. All right. So.
Okay. Okay. No trying to get around administrators. You're not gonna. I'm not gonna take that bait. Okay. What I've got in front of me now is Teams on the desktop. You can probably tell I'm using a Mac. Works pretty well. And I've got a team that I created, and I can manage my team and add members. I can add them through here. I can change their permission level, their role. This is one of my channels. It's a threaded chat. I can add an additional channel if I want to. Call it, I don't know, new project. And all that is a conversation. It's just a thread, and it stays there unless somebody decides to delete it. Wait, can we delete it? Yeah, we can. Until someone decides to delete it. I can add a brand new team. Let me create a team, and we'll call this presentation. Only team owners can add members. I can actually extend that to anybody in the organization. Adding owners, I can just say, hey, everyone's automatically a member of this team. That's got to be a mess, depending on the size of your organization. So I'm adding a new team. Let's add members. Now, this is where we can use anybody from our Outlook groups, or anybody from any Exchange users, any of our Active Directory users. We can even use external users. So this is what Microsoft made a lot easier. So now I've just added Peter as a as a new member of a brand new team. And he's an external user. He doesn't work for Lytic. Look how quickly that went. And then we can start a chat. There, Peter's already said hello to me. Welcome to our team, Peter. Let's see. Oh, this is what it is. There we go. It's an emoji. I was just going to demonstrate that. Did you get me that report? And there's an emoji I'm going to add to this. That's wonderful for demonstrations. Hold on a second. No, not that one. Wait, I can't get to my buttons on the bottom. Whoa. Where do my teams go? There we go. We've got emojis in here we can add in. We've got GIFs that we can add in. We can go find them via Giphy and search them from here. Then we've got stickers. Why not?
Looks like your screen's just hung up.
All right.
Yeah.
It's just slow. Oh, wait, here we go. Where's my guy? There we go. Hasn't added it in yet. Come on now. I don't need a caption. Oh, never mind. You get the idea. We can add GIFs in there as well. We can add files. Let's see. Let's throw a GIF in there. Fine. Send it. We can add file. I can in here. The project plan. Drop it in. This is really taking its time today. There we go. It's usually much more responsive. So there I've added a file into the chat, which gets me into file storage within a team. Every team has this files connection. And what that does is it tracks and stores every single file added into any of the chats on the team. So everyone on the team has access to it. As soon as this is finished spinning, thanks, Google Hangouts. Okay, well, what you'll end up seeing here is the file that I just dropped in. Let me use another one. So in my other team, here we go. We've got files. I've got a file. I can ask for a link. So I can send that to somebody. This is stored in a document library, an actual SharePoint document library. And if you get the link to it using this get link, this get link on the top gets somebody to the document library itself. So there's one way in which, actually even faster, you've got open in SharePoint on the right. So that's one way in which this Power App is communicating with and taking advantage of the SharePoint engine. In addition to that, let's see. Yeah, I'll get to video conferencing in a second. While I'm talking about that, let's talk about other things we can drop in on the top here. So we've got conversations. That's the chat for that particular channel. The files for that particular channel. We can build a wiki for that particular channel. And we can start with these. So what you're going to see here is a whole slew of apps we can drop in and make part of the discussion. So for example, some things that I've done right in the middle of discussions of a discussion, suddenly a to-do list starts to get built and tasks start to get doled out. Well, right in the middle of a discussion, you can just drop in Planner and start assigning tasks and keeping track of tasks within a particular channel. We can drop in, let's see, what's Twitter? Twitter's in here. So you could be in a discussion, come up with a decision, and then decide immediately to tweet about it, and then start dropping files in. So these tabs are going to get added along the top of the channel. Sorry, let me do that again. I'm going to drop in PowerPoint, and I can go point to a file. So these are it'll list for me my PowerPoint files that are in the channel. I'll select that, save it, and now today's presentation is actually right there, and I can start opening it right there, editing it in Teams. Connected to that channel has the ability to view this as soon as it starts up. I think the webinar is having its impact on the performance here. What else can we do? Oh, here we go. So I can give the presentation. I can edit the presentation right here. It's stored in Office 365. So of course, the other members of my team will see the updates as I make them. What else can we drop in? Some brief form. Of course, you've got. Come on, form. I can create a new notebook here. Let's say presentation notes. Come on. So of course, start adding images, drawings, text while a video conference is happening. All right, no more asking teams to do something special during this demo. Let's go. It's not finished yet. Couldn't save it. Don't know why. Let's move. What else do we have? Okay, so let's say I'm in a discussion. Let's go back to a conversation. And I really want Peter to see my facial expressions while we discuss what we're discussing, and why he's a spectacular employee who's essential to the project. So right there on the spot, I can hover over his icon and decide to just start a video conference right there on the spot. There might be some. Hi, Peter.
Okay, then. How are you? I got 3 monitors.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad we should invite somebody else to invite someone else right there on the spot. I can switch this. I can switch over to a chat related to this conference right there, right on the spot. Some other things I can do, and this is. Oh, where'd it go? To see in that video conference. I'm going to do that one more time, Peter.
Okay, sure.
Pick up. One of the things that we could do with that video conference is record it, and it's supposed to be here. Record your conference. Not sure why that's not ability to record it. And if you do so, everyone on the team, everyone who's part of the conference sees a pane across the top reminding them that the conference is being recorded. And where do you think, I'm going to hang up now. And where do you think that recording gets stored? It depends on where you started it. If you started that video conference as part of a chat, or actually there's a chat associated with it. So the recording becomes part of the channel. So it gets added in just like this pane here with my PowerPoint file was added in. So so you have that sort of rich archiving of everything that's come up in all of your discussions, files, videos, presentations, links to other Power Apps that you are that have been helpful to your project, your presentation, to your collaboration, whatever the case might be. So I'm going to get just back to the slides. cover. Let's see if there's anything I didn't cover here, but there's some other useful connectors listed here. You know, if you have a YouTube channel or video that's going to be helpful as a reference point for your team, that can be added in as a connector. If you have code to post to share that's in GitHub, that can be part of it as well. Teams integration with Outlook. So your team has, and your team automatically becomes a group in Exchange. So it is available and viewable in Outlook as a group automatically. Again, the reverse is not true. Teams doesn't import or inherit anything from Outlook. Your meetings on Teams are visible through Outlook as well. It all becomes part of your own Outlook calendar. So just some handy use cases. I've used it in each of these cases. I'm sure you can come up with more. For a project, for any kind of ongoing collaboration, this is a phenomenal tool. The spontaneity of being able to add connectors, the spontaneity of turning a chat into a video conference, turning a video conference into something that includes even more guests than you originally expected, being able to invite external users is all a reason to really kind of spend, if you're working heavily on collaborative projects, you can spend your whole day in Teams, and it's a wonderful tool, especially if your teams are actually spread out, geographically diverse. Terrific for a one-time presentation. That's the word I was thinking of, artifacts. So as you're giving the presentation, you can have various files already waiting for everybody who joined the presentation. You can open files during the presentation, do demonstrations, do editing, do live Q&A. It's fantastic for that. Similarly, great training tool too. You've got screen sharing, you've got leave behinds in the chat for the team, in the conversation, in the channel. So you'll find a use case very easily, not just for communicating, but whenever your communication has an extra layer to it in terms of substance and products and data and facts and files. That's all I have for slide.
Okay, great job, Ed. Got some burning questions for you.
I'm sure.
Okay. Someone's saying, what you're seeing the biggest challenge of those migrating from Skype to Teams?
Change or challenge?
Challenge.
Which did you say? Challenge. Oh. Personally, because of the nature of both applications, I don't see the use of either as a challenge. There's a challenge, of course, from the administrative side and the governance side, making sure the education aspect of it is the biggest challenge. And I don't mean how to use the tool, because it's rather user-friendly. And whatever you're thinking of doing, you can do from whatever screen you're on. You just have to kind of look around at the icons and hover over a lot more on your screen. But the challenge is really possibly training, and especially the demystifying part of it. Okay, because users are quite used to Skype for Business and its relationship to Outlook. So there has to be an education there, a broadcasting of what changes, if anything. There's not sort of a lot. The re-education of the idea of Power Apps, because it's one thing to have everyone in your organization using Outlook online, and some people use SharePoint. It ends up being a whole nother education to introduce them to Power Apps. In my experience, it's not the same thing as just saying, "Hey, we've got SharePoint, Power Apps is part of it." It's a different approach. The fact that it's a very focused tool has to be clarified to everyone, and I think it's the same challenge across all Power Apps. That's my opinion.
Okay, very cool.
But I wouldn't worry about people catching on to the interface.
Something about Slack and Teams chat security. I don't know if you know much about Slack. I personally don't come into Slack much these days. But
No.
Okay.
Generally speaking, Teams is a pretty robust competitor to Slack, but all of the administration is on the backs of your Office 365 admin. The one thing that this is a little tangential, but the one thing that I was going to say about security and Teams, and I've heard this complaint, well, not the complaint, but the concern from a number of Office 365 admins is, how do I keep people from creating a new team? I believe an Office 365 group or a SharePoint group, they can create a team as well. So it's the burden of the Office 365 administrator to watch over that, and probably create security groups and isolate the ability to create a group into that security group. Anyway, go on.
Okay, someone's asked, how is it better than Slack? One advantage Slack has definitely got over Teams is that it's got a lot more plugins or connectors to third-party applications, and that's just because it's an older product. That's what I would say.
Microsoft's getting there.
Yes, on that. Okay, final question. I would say Teams. Okay, so Jack's asking, Teams and SharePoint seem pretty similar. If you're not using either currently but are looking at in Teams collaboration, what would be the better option? Well, the word collaborate, that could be document sharing or it could be chatting. So SharePoint on its own doesn't have that, so we say chat collaboration.
Correct.
That's where you have to use Skype for Business, which is going away, and that's when you want to go into Teams on that. So that's what basically, if you're, I would say that team collaboration. Remember, the word teams is a small group of people, like a baseball team. Okay, a team is not your 55,000 employees. That would be a group.
Correct. It could be,
or a league team.
It could, well as we saw, we can have one team that includes everyone in the organization. So it's going to pull in your entire Active Directory. So it's the SharePoint equivalent. It's the equivalent of including everyone team as well. You know, the team starts empty, but for the owner. In
the interest of time, I just want to thank everyone for attending this, the first meetup of 2019, and with the meetup using the YouTube channel. I'd like to have people's feedback on this. We're meeting next month at lunchtime. Same time, and that topic we got Kamal, and he's talking about designing the digital hub. So that looks great. I'll look forward to speaking to you every month, next month. And thanks so much for your time, Ed. Great presentation.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Feel free to contact me. I've got my contact information on there. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Thanks. Hope this was helpful.
It was indeed. Thank you.